I found it because of a dead battery. My router had been dropping connection intermittently for a few weeks, nothing serious. Just the occasional freeze when I was streaming. My friend who works in IT told me to download a network scanning app to see if anything was hogging bandwidth. She walked me through it over the phone on a Sunday afternoon, both of us half-focused, her watching TV in the background. The app showed every device connected to my home network, my laptop, my phone, my smart TV, my printer, a Bluetooth speaker I'd forgotten I owned, and one more, a device I didn't recognize. Not a name I knew, not a brand I'd bought. Just a string of numbers and letters, an IP address, a device type listed as camera. Camera, I said to my friend, there's a camera on my network. She said, what kind of camera? I said, I don't know. I don't own a camera. She was quiet for a second. Then she said to screenshot it and not touch anything else, and she'd call me back. She called back in 4 minutes, and she said I needed to call the police. I want to describe what those 4 minutes were like, sitting in my own apartment after she hung up, because I have never adequately described it to anyone, and I think it matters. The apartment was exactly the same as it had been 10 minutes before. Same Sunday afternoon light. Same half-drunk cup of tea on the coffee table. Same sounds from the street outside. Nothing had changed in the physical world. But I was sitting in the middle of it, and I had stopped being able to inhabit it. Every corner of the room had become a question. Every object I hadn't personally purchased and placed had become suspect. The smoke detector I'd inherited from the previous tenant. The clock on the kitchen wall that had come with the furnished unit. The small decorative vent cover in the hallway that I had never once thought about. I sat in my apartment and I felt watched in a way that retroactively reached back through every day I had lived there. 9 months. I had lived there 9 months. I called the police. 2 officers came. A detective followed 20 minutes later. They found it in 40 minutes, a small wireless camera disguised as a phone charger, plugged into an outlet in my bedroom. The kind you can buy online for $30. The kind designed to look exactly like a functional phone charger, while transmitting video to anyone with the access code. The outlet it was plugged into was on the wall facing my bed. I watched the detective put it into an evidence bag, and I felt my legs go strange. That particular weakness that happens when your body has been holding tension for a long time, and something releases. It all at once. I sat down on the edge of my bed, then immediately stood up again, because I didn't want to sit on my bed, because my bed was in the frame, because everything in that room was in the frame. The detective asked me when I'd moved in, 9 months ago. She asked if I'd known the previous tenant. No. She asked if I'd done anything to change the layout of the room since moving in, moved furniture, rearranged. I had. I'd moved my dresser in the first week. I had not moved the outlet. She said they'd pull the device logs to determine how long it had been active and who had been accessing the feed. I asked, how long could it have been there? She said they didn't know yet. I asked, could it have been there before I moved in? She said it was possible. I sat with that. Before I moved in, which meant it might have been there when I'd done the walkthrough with the landlord, when I'd moved my boxes in, when I'd stood in that room and thought about where to put my furniture. It might have been transmitting from the moment I arrived. They arrested my landlord 3 days later. He'd installed cameras in multiple units. I was the 4th tenant to come forward once the investigation opened. He'd been doing it for 4 years. 4 years. I won't go into what the detective told me about what they found on his devices because I can't. Some information you receive, and you put it in a box, and you close the box, and you do not open it. I closed that box a long time ago. What I will tell you is this. The thing nobody prepares you for is not the legal process, which is long and exhausting, but has a structure, a sequence, an endpoint. The thing nobody prepares you for is what happens inside your own body after. I moved out the day after the arrest. I have moved 3 times since. Every new apartment I conduct what my therapist calls a sweep, a systematic check of every outlet, every smoke detector, every object I didn't purchase myself. I use an RF detector I bought online. I check the network every week. In 3 years, I have not found anything. In 3 years, I have also not stopped checking. That is the thing I want you to understand. The camera was real, and it was removed, and the man who put it there is in prison, and none of that is the point. The point is that I check. Every week, every new place, every outlet I didn't install myself. Because I know now what I didn't know before. That the room you think is private might not be. That the space you inhabit fully and without self-consciousness, the space where you are most yourself, most unguarded, can be observed without your knowledge. And once you know that, you cannot unknow it. I check the network every Sunday. Not because I expect to find something. Because the one Sunday I didn't check, I would have missed it. And I don't know how many Sundays I missed before I started. I found it on a Saturday morning. I was cleaning. That's the whole mundane setup of it, a Saturday morning. Cleaning my bedroom, moving things to vacuum behind the nightstand. The nightstand had a small shelf on the back, a design feature I'd barely noticed, and sitting on that shelf, facing outward, was a small black device I didn't recognize. Rectangular, maybe 2 inches long, with a tiny dark circle on one end, small enough to sit in the palm of your hand. I picked it up and turned it over and looked at the tiny dark circle, and my brain did the thing where it refuses to process what it already knows. I stood there for a long moment holding this thing, my mind offering me explanations I could feel were wrong even as it offered them. An old key fob, a Bluetooth adapter, something the previous tenant left. Then I saw the lens catch the light. The lens. Inside the tiny dark circle, the unmistakable glint of a glass lens. I put it down on the nightstand. I stepped back one step, then another. I stood in the middle of my bedroom with my arms crossed over my chest, which was involuntary, my body doing something my mind hadn't told it to do, trying to cover itself even though I was fully dressed, because the covering wasn't about the present moment. It was about every moment before. The nightstand was next to my bed. The shelf faced outward, toward the bed, toward the room, toward everything. It had been sitting there since I moved in 14 months ago, in the apartment that came partially furnished. And in 14 months, I had never thought to look at the back of the nightstand. 14 months. I stood there and I felt nauseous in a wave that came up fast, the kind that makes your mouth fill with saliva and your body go very cold and very hot at the same time. I pressed my hand over my mouth. I breathed through my nose until it passed. Then I picked up my phone and called the police. And while I waited for them, I sat on the floor in the hallway outside my bedroom with the door open so I could see the device still sitting on the nightstand because I needed to keep it in my sight, and I also could not be in that room. I sat on the hallway floor with my back against the wall and my knees pulled up, and I waited. And while I waited, I did something I could not stop myself from doing. I started counting. 14 months is approximately 420 days. I moved in April, so April, May, June, last summer, last fall, last winter, this spring, every morning getting up. Every night going to bed. Every time I changed my clothes in my room, because my room was my private space. The one room in the apartment that was entirely mine, and I had never had any reason to be anything other than completely unguarded in it. 420 days of that. 420 days of the device on the shelf at the back of the nightstand, positioned to capture everything in its frame. I was shaking by the time the officers arrived, not the manageable shaking of cold or nerves, the kind that comes from somewhere deeper, that your body does without consulting you, that you can feel in your teeth. One of the officers crouched down to eye level with me in the hallway and asked if I was hurt, and I said no, and she asked if anyone else was in the apartment, and I said no, and she said okay, and she said I'd done the right thing calling, and her voice was calm, and it helped a little, but not enough. They confirmed it was a camera, a wireless camera with onboard storage and a transmission function. The kind sold online, marketed as a security device used for something else entirely. The detective who came later, a woman named Sasha, who had done this before, and whose steadiness I was grateful for and also found slightly unbearable, sat across from me at my kitchen table and asked me questions, and I answered them. How long had I been in the apartment? Did I know who had furnished it? Had I noticed anyone in the building paying unusual attention to me? Had anything ever seemed out of place? That last question. Had anything ever seemed out of place? I thought about 14 months of mornings and evenings and ordinary days in my own bedroom. I thought about getting dressed. I thought about being sick in bed with a fever last November. 3 days of being completely unself-conscious in my own space, because that's what you do when you're sick and alone. You stop performing. You exist without an audience. I had not been without an audience. I said to the detective, how many people might have seen it? She said they were still working on that. I said, I need to know the range, roughly. She looked at me and I could see her making a calculation about how much to tell me. Then she said the device had been transmitting to a cloud account. She said access logs would tell them more. She said I should prepare for the possibility that the footage had been viewed by more than one person. More than one person. I sat at my kitchen table in my own apartment, and I thought about more than one person, and I felt something I don't have a word for. Not anger, though anger was there. Not humiliation, though that was there too. Something underneath both of those. Something that felt like a part of me had been taken and distributed without my knowledge to people I'd never met. And there was no way to take it back because you cannot unsee something. And somewhere out there were people who had looked, and I would never know who they were, and they would always know more about me than I had ever chosen to share with them. I arrested my own breathing for a second at that thought. Actually arrested it. Mid-inhale, my chest just stopped. Then I breathed out very slowly and I pressed my hands flat on the table and I looked at Sasha and I said, "What do I do now?" She told me. She was good at her job and she told me everything I needed to do, the steps, the order, the resources. I wrote it down because writing it down gave my hands something to do. They arrested my neighbor 3 weeks later. A man I had nodded to in the hallway. A man I had held the elevator for twice. A man whose name I had never known and now knew and will never forget. The case is ongoing. I won't say more about it than that. What I will say is this: I have a new apartment now. The furniture is all mine, every piece, bought new, assembled by my own hands. I know the history of every object in every room because I am the history of every object in every room. I check everything. I have a detector, I have a protocol, I have a system that my therapist says is a healthy response to what happened, and that I know I will do for the rest of my life regardless of what any therapist says. Because the alternative is trusting a room, and I don't know how to do that anymore. But here is the thing I want to tell you. The thing that is the actual bottom of this. The thing that keeps me sitting with the lights on sometimes at 2 in the morning. It's not the checking. The checking I can do. The checking gives me something. It's the knowing that for 14 months I didn't check. For 14 months I was in that room every day, completely myself, completely unguarded, in the complete and total belief that I was alone, and the belief was wrong, and I cannot go back and be right about it. Those 420 days happened. They are fixed. They cannot be revised. Somewhere in whatever evidence locker or server or deleted hard drive, the record of those days exists in a form I never consented to and cannot erase. I think about that sometimes when I'm falling asleep. The permanent nature of it. The way it lives outside of me now, in files I don't control, in the memories of people I've never met. The me in that footage is still in that room, getting up every morning, going to bed every night, living without knowing, still there. And I can't go get her.
Tốc độ giới hạn 80 km/h.
My friend Dara sent me the link on a Thursday afternoon with no context, just the link and a question mark. She'd found it in a forum thread about our neighborhood. Someone posting about a local guy who'd been reported to the police, asking if anyone knew him. Someone else had replied with the link as evidence. I clicked it on my phone in the break room at work, standing by the coffee machine, people walking past me, the normal noise of an ordinary Thursday afternoon. The page loaded. I saw myself. Not a photo, a video of my bedroom, taken from above and to the right, from the direction of the bookshelf near my door. Me in my bedroom, in my own private space, on a date I could identify from something on my desk, a birthday card that had only been there for 1 week in February. I watched for maybe 3 seconds before my body made the decision to stop. My thumb closed the browser. I don't remember making the choice. My hand just did it. I was standing in the break room with my phone in my hand, and my vision had narrowed to a point, the way it narrows when you're about to faint. Except I wasn't going to faint, I was just going somewhere very small and very internal, very fast. The sounds of the office had gone strange, like they were coming from the wrong distance. The fluorescent lights were too bright. Someone said my name and I didn't respond because I couldn't locate the mechanism that would make me respond. I walked to the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the floor with my back against the wall because my legs had made it clear they were done with the standing arrangement. The tile was cold through my work pants. I could feel that clearly. Everything else had gone to static except the cold tile under my legs, and the phone in my hand, and the knowledge that somewhere on the internet was a video of me in my own room that I had not put there. Someone had put it there, which meant someone had recorded it, which meant there was a camera in my room, which meant there had been a camera in my room for however long it had been there, and I had not known. And every single private thing I had ever done in that room had been available to whoever was on the other end of it. I sat on the bathroom floor and I thought I was going to be sick. And I pressed the back of my head against the wall and breathed through my mouth until the nausea backed off enough that I trusted myself to stand. I called Dara. She answered immediately, and I could tell from her voice that she'd already understood what it was when she sent it. She kept saying, I'm so sorry, her voice cracking on it. And I said, stop, I need you to stop saying that. I need you to tell me what to do right now. Tell me what to do. She said, call the police. I said, does anyone else have this link? She said she didn't know. She said the forum post had been up for at least a few hours before she saw it. She said she didn't know how many people had seen it. I stood in that bathroom stall and I felt something that I have never felt before and hope to never feel again. The particular helplessness of knowing that something has already happened and cannot be stopped because it is not a thing that is happening. It is a thing that has happened. And the having happened cannot be undone. And somewhere out there in the part of the world that is not inside this locked bathroom stall, people are looking at something that was never meant for them. And there is nothing I can do about what has already been seen. I cannot describe adequately what that feels like. I have tried and I have failed every time. The closest I can get is this. Imagine every boundary you have ever had around your own body, around your own private self, removed without your consent. Not broken, removed, as if they had never existed. And everyone on the other side of where those boundaries used to be can now see everything. And they saw it while you still thought the boundaries were there, while you were still moving through your own life as if you were protected. That's what I felt on the bathroom floor. I called the police from the stall. The dispatcher was kind and efficient and told me to stay where I was and officers would come to my location. I gave her my work address. I said, please don't come in with uniforms. My coworkers don't know. She said she'd note that. 2 plainclothes officers met me in the lobby. I walked out of the building with them and told my manager I had a family emergency and I did not go back to work that day or the next. They found the camera that evening. A smoke detector in my bedroom that I had lived under for 11 months. Looking at every morning when I woke up, passing every night when I went to bed, never once understanding what it was. 11 months. The police identified the man who had posted the link. He was someone I had seen in passing. Someone in the orbit of people I knew. Not a stranger, but not someone I'd ever been alone with or trusted. He was arrested. The landlord was investigated. There were other tenants. I was not the only one. None of that made the video go away. Here is what I need to tell you about the aftermath, the thing that the legal process does not address and that nobody warned me about. The video existed. It had been posted. Even after the post was taken down, even after the platform removed it, there is no mechanism in the world that guarantees content is gone once it has been online. Anyone who saw it and saved it still has it. Anyone who shared it before the takedown still has a copy somewhere. The spread of something like that is not reversible. It is not a linear thing that goes from point A to point B and can be intercepted. It is an exponential thing, branching and copying and existing in places you will never find. I know this. I knew it the moment I understood what had happened. And that knowledge sits in me like a stone that does not get lighter. Every day of the 16 months since, I wake up, and it is the first thing I think about. Not every day with the same weight. It gets lighter, my therapist is right about that, it does get lighter. But it does not go away. You do not reach a morning where you wake up, and it is not the first thing. Because here is the truth of it. I cannot tell you that the video is gone. I cannot tell you that nobody has it. I cannot tell you that somewhere right now, on someone's hard drive or in a private folder on a platform I've never heard of, there is not a copy. I don't know. I will never know. And the not knowing is permanent. There is no moment when the case closes and I can say with certainty, it's over, it's gone, it's contained. That moment does not exist. The legal case will close. The criminal will be sentenced. My therapist says I am making progress, and I believe her. But the video was online, and the internet does not forget. And somewhere, in some form, on some device, I am still in that room. Getting dressed, living my life, not knowing. And I will spend the rest of my life not knowing whether anyone is watching. That is what he took from me, not a video. The certainty that I am ever truly alone.